The name of the piece I chose is Attic Black Figure Group E Panel Amphora. Super creative. The time period that this art piece comes from is the Archaic period of Greece. The definition of amphora, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, is pottery which was used in ancient Greece as a jar for storage, for things like cereal, olives, oil, and wine, and is characterized as a pot with two handles on each side, one on each side, and a narrow neck that meets the wider body, which gradually slopes down to a narrow base supported by a round bottom structure that is wider than the base of the pot. The potter of this piece is unknown, but gained a lot of influence from the famous Greek potter Exekius, who made many advancements in Greek styles of art, including the black figure style of painting black figures on a dark red clay background. According to the book by author John Davidson Beasley, Group E, from the title, is a group of potters and artists, the most famous of whom was Exekius, who appears to have signed all his works. Therefore, it is unlikely that this particular amphora was done by Exekius, as it is unsigned. Instead, it was likely done by one of his fellow Group E members. Themes of the gods and mythical stories are common in the works of Exekius and his fellow artists, and that is the case with this piece. The date of this piece, it was done on around 540 BC. According to this book by author John Davidson Beasley, the vases of Group E were made in the middle of the 6th century and early part of the 3rd quarter. This particular piece has a height of 50 centimeters, and today it is located in Dusseldorf, owned by a private collector. A little bit about black figure pottery painting from Wikipedia. Silhouettes were used, and the precise details of the figures were added with other colors, white and red usually later. The figures themselves were done in black and outlined against the red background. This particular piece of art doesn't have any extra color or details in white or red. Instead, the black color appears to be scraped carefully off of the red clay in minuscule lines to add the detail. This could possibly mean that this particular amphora was created before the specific technique of black figure pottery painting was set into stone, so to speak. This particular piece also has a lot more black coloring than the other pieces of its time, making it pretty unique. The actual red parts are just the two panels on each side of the handles telling the story, and some minor accents, and of course the inside of the jar. Most of the outside of the jar was actually colored black, as were the figures. The story the jar represents is of the sea god Poseidon killing polyboats by dropping the island of Nisyros on him. It also depicts Athena running toward Poseidon, being pursued by an armored giant, and Ares felling another armored giant in the Great War of the Olympian gods against giants known as Gigantomachy. Polybotes, the giant, the story goes, was born from sky and earth and joined in the mythical battle with the other Greek gods. According to the legend, Poseidon threw a piece of the land of Kos, which he stabbed with his trident, and this island flew through the air and landed on polyboats, and it became known as Nisyros. On the reverse side, it depicts an armed warrior seated upon an altar receiving tribute from a man and a woman, and behind the warrior are two other males. Not much more about this part of the image is known. The Archaic period pottery shows an emphasis on only the most important details, it seems like, on the simplistic. Not a lot of things are happening on this vase. Even though the story depicted is quite complex, the actual figures, and especially the island being held by Poseidon, are just outlines with a few superficial details included. The later idea of naturalism in Greek art is not really seen here, yet what detail is shown is actually quite intricate. Figures are also starting to display a 3/4 view and side view, not just a weird frontal view, indicating a drift towards the natural. Overall, I feel that the piece is pretty cool, yet it leaves me with a feeling of confusion. I would have no idea what is actually going on if I didn't have a description of the scenes, as they are pretty vague.
When excavated, the Divinity crater contained burnt bones that belonged to a man aged 35 to 50 and to a younger woman. The vase is composed of 2 leaves of metal, which were hammered then joined, although the handles and the volutes, which are scrolls, were cast and attached. The top part of the crater is decorated with motifs, both ornamental and figurative. The top neck presents a frieze of animals, and most of all, 4 statuettes that are casually seated on the shoulders of the vase in a pose foreshadowing